Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Wednesday. I hope the week is going well, whether you're watching or listening to this around the world. As always, thank you very much for joining me. Halfway through the first working week of the international break. The games are about to start. We've not got too much longer to wait for the international games to kick off. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on the show. Look at who's doing what over the next 48 hours or so from an Arsenal point of view. We're going to talk about a big new appointment, potentially, probably, in Arsenal's recruitment team as well. Andrea Berta pushing to bring himself in some help, and some very experienced and successful help as well. So that's quite exciting. We'll talk about that. I'll talk about Myles Lewis-Skelly. Got lots of questions and comments from you guys as well. The Everton fixture, everything like that. So plenty to get stuck into today. But I think we've got to start with Sammy's big story that he put out on the BBC yesterday, that Arsenal are closing in on Maurizio Micheli, who is currently, or has been, head of scouting at Napoli. Had a really successful time over in Italy. This is his second time being at Napoli. He's sort of moved away briefly, came back, I think, in 2018, has been there ever since, and has been credited with a lot of the huge success that Napoli have enjoyed in recent years with some of the signings. As you know, Sammy points out there in his tweet that he put out, that if you watch on YouTube, you can see what I'm talking about. Obviously, Kvaratskhelia, Marek Hamsik, plenty of other success stories under his watch at Napoli, and he is on his way to Arsenal, or he should be, providing the legal stuff all gets signed, sealed and delivered. He's going to be heading over to Arsenal to take up a role in the recruitment team, a senior role in the recruitment team under Andrea Berta, which I think is an excitement appointment. Andrea Berta has been looking to bring in some extra expertise to help him on the recruitment side of things at Arsenal for a while. Was very close to bringing someone in. I've forgotten his name off the top of my head now, from Italy in the summer. That fell through at the kind of last minute. Obviously, James Ellis has moved up to be technical director in the recruitment team as well. And you've got Andrea Berta doing what he does as sporting director, but he wants more expertise. Jason Ito obviously left fairly recently, so he's been scouring Europe, and Maurizio Micheli is certainly a hugely highly rated figure in the recruitment world. So it's exciting, I think. Look, I mean, he's going to have to start fresh. It's going to be a new job for him. Just because you're successful at one club doesn't mean you're going to be successful at others. But he's got a very good resume, highly respected, and yeah, Arsenal are hoping to get that done. It's not done yet, as I said. The deal's not completely signed and agreed, but it is heading in that direction, and the expectation is that he will be coming in. So let me know your thoughts on that. Are you excited by this appointment? I think so far pretty much everything Andrea Berta has touched has turned to gold, we can safely say, at the moment. And this is a guy, if this is a guy that Berta trusts to come in and be a key part of his team, then I think we've all got to trust his judgment. His judgment so far has been very, very good. I think we can all agree on that. So fingers crossed, this will be another really exciting appointment who can help Arsenal unearth some gems from across Europe and make the squad even stronger. So that is a deal that is expected to be wrapped up pretty soon. Disappointing night for the under-21s yesterday. Disappointing night for all of us who were hoping maybe to see one or two of the injured senior players come back as well. Arsenal had been looking to do that, had been talking to the medical staff about whether this was the right thing to do. There was certainly a lot of consideration going into at least one or two of the injured players being involved in this game, but they've obviously decided that it wasn't the case. It has come a little bit too soon. I was talking about it in yesterday's show. Nothing was set in stone, and they've obviously decided that it would be best for these players to continue doing what they're doing at London Colney and not be involved in the under-21s game. And they lost 3-1. They got out of the competition, which is a bit of a shame for them. Weren't helped yesterday. Had a good start, played pretty well early on with a better side in the first half, went in front, got pegged back straight away, but then Rojas got sent off. The goalkeeper Rojas got sent off in the second half, and that made things very, very difficult, and ended up conceding 2 goals, one of them in injury time, and losing 3-1. And that means they're out of the Virtu Trophy. Didn't get through the group stage again. I think only one of the Is this right? I think this is right. I think only one of the Premier League Academy clubs or teams that are in the competition has progressed through this season to the knockout stages. Doesn't really seem to be working that well, having the academy setups in this competition. Arsenal not really been successful at it yet. Went out of the group stage again. Like I said, I think it was only West Ham who have progressed. So yeah, that was disappointing. It was disappointing. I think we were all hoping when the team news came out, I was looking at it thinking, are we going to see maybe a Madueke in it, potentially even a Gabriel Jesus. Obviously, it wasn't going to be a Gyökeres and a Martinelli. That wasn't going to happen. Martin Odegaard's away in Norway, so that wasn't going to happen. So it kind of left potentially Havertz, Madueke, and Jesus from as the potentials who could have been involved in this game, who Arsenal were considering bringing into the squad. But ultimately, the decision was taken that it was not quite ready. Whether we see a behind closed doors game, or whether Arsenal put a, I say we see one, we won't actually see it, but you know what I mean. Whether Arsenal do put a behind closed doors game on over the next week or so to try and get some minutes into these legs, we shall wait and see. So that was disappointing for the 21s last night. Bukayo Saka has been talking ahead of England's game this week, and I thought Saka was brilliant in what he had to say. He spoke a lot about England, obviously, in the World Cup, and but he also spoke about Arsenal and how they're being viewed this season, and the kind of narrative that is coming out at the moment from not everyone, but from some people, some high-profile figures in the game, of course, saying that it's Arsenal's to lose already after 11 games. Bukayo was asked about that yesterday in the press conference. And he said, that's for other people to say. We just have to win every game. That's the mentality we go into games with, see where it leaves us. We can't get carried away with what people are saying, because one day they'll say something, the next day they'll say something different. It's exactly what I said before. People's opinions and thoughts about us change like the weather. The most important thing is the changing room, how solid we are, the foundation we have, the belief we have in ourselves, how we stick together through the good and the bad. That's the most important. We can't pay attention to external noise because it's always fluctuating. We're good. We're in a good place, and now it's time to focus on this national duty. I thought he nailed it with those comments, especially the bit about people's opinions and thoughts about us change like the weather, because they absolutely do. You know, it's just a few games ago, a few weeks ago before the Newcastle game, people are looking at that and saying, you know, big high profile pundits saying, you know, if Arsenal lose this, they're out of it. They haven't got a chance. They don't go to these big games, and they can't, you know, they play within themselves, all that sort of stuff, too defensive, too negative. If they lose this game, they're out of it. Then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, oh, it's their titles to lose. They're the best team by far. Just changes so easily, the narrative, the views, the comments. And I think Saka's absolutely right to say, look, can't pay attention to what people are saying. We've just got to focus on ourselves. And he's absolutely spot on. You know, he's been wearing the armband since Martin Odegaard's been out and since he's come back to fitness. And I think those sort of comments are exactly what he needs to be saying. And I'm sure he will be saying behind the scenes to the players. Just shut out the noise. Don't listen to what people are saying. Just focus on ourselves. That's all we can do. That, as he said in those comments, there's going to be good moments, which Arsenal have enjoyed recently, and there are going to be bad moments. And I'm sure there are going to be bad moments to come this season. You know, you saw the reaction to the draw against Sunderland. There's going to be defeats. Arsenal are going to lose games between now and May. So it's about how they react to those bad moments as well. And, you know, the noise then will amplify even more when there are bad moments. And again, it's just about this group of players. And I'm sure they'll do it. Just doing what Bukayo Saka says, shutting out the noise, ignoring it, and just focusing on themselves. But I thought they were really good comments from a guy who's just really sort of stepping up in a leadership role as well. Still so young, Bukayo Saka, but absolute leader in this team. Right, I wanted to talk about Myles Lewis-Skelly. I spoke about him yesterday on Inside Arsenal Extra Time with James Bench, but I know a lot of you don't watch that extended episode. So I just wanted to give my thoughts on it today. I'm getting absolutely hammered by rival fans and some Arsenal fans, to be fair, on social media, because I put out a tweet about this yesterday. I just don't like, and maybe this is me with my Arsenal bias, so maybe if this was about something else, another player for another club, it wouldn't bother me as much. But I just don't like this narrative that's been spun. Now, Sky Sports put out a story yesterday basically saying that Premier League clubs are interested in Myles Lewis-Skelly. Thomas Tuchel has told him that he needs to play more minutes if he wants to go to the World Cup. I just feel a little bit uneasy with that. And I know Tuchel's the England manager, and I know he said it publicly in the past when he's been asked a direct question at press conferences. But certainly when you listen to the Sky Sports piece yesterday, it's kind of like, you know, saying, oh, he's talked to Myles Lewis-Skelly, who's not been included in this squad, and told him he needs to play. I just feel a little bit uneasy about an England manager who has brought a very young teenage kid into the picture, brought him in, played him, started him, he scored on debut for England. So then it almost feels like pressurizing this 19-year-old kid basically kind of telling him to move And that's just generating these stories that we're hearing now of all Premier League clubs are interested in Myles Lewis-Skelly. Now, the Sky did say Arsenal are, not considering selling Myles Lewis-Skelly at this point, quite rightly so. But I just feel a little bit uneasy about the whole thing. It's just like it's unnecessary pressure, unnecessary. It's unsettling, I would say, for a 19-year-old kid. He's still played plenty of games this season. I think he's on about 13 appearances already this season. We're not even at the end of November yet. He started in the Champions League. Yes, his minutes in the Premier League have been limited compared to what we saw last season. But what we saw last season was so unexpected and was because of injuries. Those injured players are now back and fit, and he's got an Italian international ahead of him who's playing at the top of his game as part of a defence that has been breaking all records. So it is going to be hard for Myles, but he's 19-year-old. It's supposed to be hard for a 19-year-old to force your way into a team like Arsenal. It's not. You're not always going to be going like that. You're not always going to be playing week in, week out. Could Arteta have used him more in some games? Yes, I think so. I easily could have seen him start in one of the 3 games that were played last week away from home. Could he have come on off the bench against Sunderland? I absolutely think he could have done. He didn't. But even so, I still just feel a little bit uneasy about the stuff that's suddenly coming out around him of he needs to play. Tuchel has warned him that he needs to play more if he wants to go to the World Cup. There's plenty of international tournaments. It's not the be-all and end-all to go to this World Cup for Myles Lewis-Skelly. It'd be great, and I think he should go. I think he's good enough to go, and I think Tuchel will be hurting himself if he doesn't include him in the squad. But I just feel that, again, maybe it's my Arsenal bias. I don't know. It's especially because of his age that I just don't think we need to see these sort of stories and warnings, public warnings about game time for someone so young playing at one of the top clubs in the world, who is not like he's not been playing. He has been playing. He's been playing in the Champions League this season, starting games, playing well. It's not like he's out in the cold. He's just getting what you would expect. It's probably fairly still good game time for a 19-year-old at one of the top clubs in the world. So, yeah, I've been getting hammered on social media for my views on that, I have to say. So let me know if you agree on that. I'm intrigued by it. A few of you have got in touch. Here's some of you talking about it. Toby says, I'm worried about Ethan and MLS. After playing so many minutes last season, I'm not sure spending so much time on the bench this season is doing them any favours. Not sure they should start every game, but Arteta needs to do better at rotating them into the team. I agree. I think there's been opportunities for that, but they have still played quite a bit of football. Toby says Tuchel should just leave Myles alone. No one asked you to pick him in the first place and put him under the spotlight. Besides, some worthy talent would be left at home anyways. So everyone get used to seeing some very good players watching the World Cup from the couch. And Gav Lever says, probably get a lot of hate, but as of January, I'd loan both Nwaneri and MLS to get crucial game time and development. I feel the other players are too crucial to a title challenge, whereas they need experience in game time weekly. I couldn't disagree with you more there, Gav. I have to say, why would you weaken your squad halfway through a season when you're going for a title in the Champions League? And these are players who are contributing. They are playing minutes. Maybe not as many minutes as they would have hoped, or some others would have hoped to see, but they are contributing. I just don't. When you're going for what Arsenal are going for, and you've got so many games in the second half of the season, I just would not put any consideration into weakening the squad by letting 2 players go out on loan in the summer. Maybe if things aren't looking better for them, but not at the point in January, I have to say. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below in terms of what's going on with Myles, the noise that we're suddenly seeing created, the stories that are being spun about him. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. Right, again, just on the rearranged Premier League fixture, this was another thing myself and James covered quickly in extra time yesterday, but I just wanted to go over it again here for those who didn't watch it. So the game, obviously, you would have seen has been moved forward from the 21st to the 20th. It's now going to be played at 8 p.m. So that there is a 3-day gap until the League Cup game, quarterfinal against Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace's game against Leeds has also been moved to 8 p.m. on the Saturday. So from a player point of view, obviously, it seems like a more sensible decision. You get an extra day of recovery before the Crystal Palace game. So it makes sense from that point of view. I have to say, from other points of view, I don't think this is great for Arsenal. I know Arsenal have been pushing for it to happen. They wanted to make sure that the players had as much recovery as they possibly could, and that makes sense. And in the long run, it's probably the best thing, because if we end up losing a player, if they played Sunday, Tuesday, and we lost, I don't know, Saka or someone to a hamstring strain in that game, we'd all be absolutely fuming. It could still happen, you never know. But if it did, and there was only 2 days recovery time, you'd be absolutely fuming. I do think the fixture is now harder. It's gone from a I've been to Everton on like early afternoon kickoffs, and I've been there in evening kickoffs under the lights, and I know which game I prefer, which time and I prefer in it is a sort of lunchtime or early afternoon kickoff all day long, because it's completely different there under the lights. Absolutely. And, I've never been to this stadium, but I'm sure it's going to be exactly the same. So I do feel the game has certainly gone up a little bit in the terms of the difficulty stakes. Now it's going to be an 8 p.m. kickoff under the lights on the Saturday, when the fans are going to be up for it. They're going to be, having plenty of hours in the pub, getting themselves warmed up for it, and it's going to be loud, it's going to be rowdy. Whereas on Sunday, sometimes we've all been there at the Emirates on a Sunday afternoon, early kickoff. It's quieter. Everyone's a bit tired, hungover, whatever, and the atmosphere just isn't the same. So I think it's harder from a game point of view, and I also think it's terrible from a fan's point of view, match-going fans' point of view. It's terrible what's happened here. This game had been set for TV on the Sunday. People had spent their money booking their tickets, booking hotel, booking travel, and now suddenly this game that had already been switched has now been switched again. So for those match-going fans, it's awful. There are no trains home. 8 p.m. kickoff on a Saturday, you cannot get home if you're going by the train to London. Absolutely impossible. So there's now no trains home. Yes, Arsenal putting on sort of for extra coach travel at reduced prices of only £10 return. But even so, people are going to be losing out on hotels. They're going to be losing out on travel that they can't change, all things like that. So for the match-going fan, it's terrible. I know Arteta was in his press conference saying, we've got to put player welfare and our supporters first. Well, with this decision, and I know Arsenal have been backed into a corner over a little bit. They didn't want the game to be changed. They didn't want to have to play the Cup quarter-final on Christmas Eve in the evening because of the fans. So they're in a difficult situation. But, when Arteta's sitting there in front of the press saying that player welfare and supporters have to be the top consideration when it comes to this game, it does feel like those supporters that Arteta was talking about have not really been thought about here, because it's pretty terrible for them, I have to say. So it's all just a mess. The whole thing's been a mess, and it needs to be sorted out in terms of how this scheduling works and where the games are played, how they're played, the fixture list, the calendar list, how competitions intertwine, the League Cup, how you use it going forward. There's so much, this can't happen every single season. And at the moment, the way it stands, it could happen every single season. And that's just not good enough in my view. Right, in terms of the internationals that are going to get underway from tomorrow, few Arsenal players in action tomorrow. William Saliba, big game for France. They can qualify if results go their way with their game against Ukraine in Paris tomorrow night. Then you've got Ricardo Calafiori, who's Italy side, need an absolute miracle to finish above Norway. He's in action later on the Thursday against Moldova for Italy. Then there's the England boys as well against Serbia. England obviously already qualified. We'll see how Thomas Tuchel handles that squad and handles that team. But Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka, and Eberechi is involved there. Capier playing. He's got a long trip to Canada for Ecuador against that's taking place in Toronto. And then you've got Urian Timber as well, who I think Netherlands can also seal qualification to the World Cup on Friday if results go their way. They play Poland as well. Plenty more action to come. So the international fixtures to get underway very, very soon, which certainly should keep us entertained as we head towards the weekend. Right, just some questions and comments now before we wrap this one up. Paul agrees with me, says the whole Palace situation is an absolute farce. It's now inconveniencing 3 other teams, 3 other sets of supporters, all to give Palace a better chance of winning a League Cup tie. They should have been made to play on the original date or allowed to forfeit the tie completely. Again, I mean, maybe we're looking at this through an Arsenal rose-tinted glasses, but that would have been the best situation. Wouldn't have been good for Palace. And it probably wouldn't, well, it definitely wouldn't have been good for their players in terms of how many minutes they're going to be playing. But it is inconveniencing a huge amount of, like you said, 3 other teams' supporters, 3 other teams and their players and their schedules, everything like that. Arsenal didn't want the fixture change. They wanted it in the position that it should have been in. Ultimately, the decision was made that it needed to be moved, and it has been a real inconvenience to a lot of people. So I kind of agree with you there, Paul. Snowball says, how is it possible or even right for Odegaard to travel for the international break when he's been out with injury? It's crazy for Arsenal to let him go. I understand your point here. I absolutely understand your point. I mean, we don't know exactly how close Odegaard is to coming back. I mean, Stella Stolback and the the Norway manager, was talking at his press conference yesterday or the day before. I think it was yesterday morning. And he said that, Odegaard's still a little bit off coming back just yet. So we'll wait and see if we get any sort of update from Mikel ahead of the Tottenham game in terms of how Odegaard's doing. But, he is... I can see why he wants to go. Should be, fingers crossed for Norway anyway, a very special international break when they're going to seal qualification to the World Cup. He's going to be, he wants to be involved in that, even though he's not going to be playing, as long as he's not stupid. And he's going to be doing sort of rehab recovery work over there with the Norway team as well. Then I don't really see a massive issue in it. He went during the last international break. That was fine. He's just got to be sensible here. So I get the point. It doesn't look, the first time when I saw he was going again, given he was going to be so close, or due to be so close to coming back, I was like, would that not have been better to stay at London Colney and just continue to work? But, Martin Odegaard's a very professional guy. He won't do anything that's going to put his recovery at risk. So I'm sure he's going to work very hard when he is over there with Norway. Slightly strange, John says, any reasons we don't play our own 11-11 during the international break? The women's team played like that before the Champions League final, with one group of 11 playing the way Barca play. It worked well for the final, so maybe something the men should try instead of a friendly against some other team. Maybe half could play like Spurs or Bayern. The issue with that, John, is during the international break, they were not going to be 22 players to be able to do that. They're all away. So, there'll be a handful of senior players who are still around, and Mikel will use this time to give some of them that time off anyway. So I just don't really think that works. Before the Women's Champions League final, everyone was there. The squad was all there together, so it was something that was doable. But it's just impossible to do that during the international break. Even if they do it behind closed doors friendly in the next week or so, with a couple of the injured players coming back into it, it's going to be a team made up of kids as well, just to sort of make up the numbers. So that will be the reason why. And finally, Vanna Gunner says, I can't help but think the world really underestimates how much Arteta loves Gabriel Jesus. He feels like another player the fan base has written off, like Martinelli and Trossard. I'm really in his corner and hope that he can prove a few people wrong. Absolutely agree. Everyone, I've made my feelings very clear about Gabriel Jesus and how good a player I think he is, or can be, if he's fully fit and up to speed. And Mikel Arteta certainly thinks that as well. Whether he makes an impact this season, who knows? I hope he does. It'd be great if he does. If he gets back to fit, I expect he would make an impact because he's that good a player. But we just don't know in terms of how he gets back from this injury and how quickly he gets up to full speed. But Arteta certainly likes him, certainly rates him. And if he can get him up to full speed, then he's certainly a player that Mikel Arteta is going to use between now and the end of the season. And that is it from me today, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it as always. I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again with my regular show. Also got the Arsenal Press Pass show with Sam and Simon coming for it. Inside Arsenal Patreon members tomorrow as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Until then, speak to you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.